Hello, my name is John Koenig. Before I begin my guided tour of my training on creating assessments with Google Forms, I wanted to provide you with some background information. In this module, my peers will learn how to create a Google Forms assessment, how to assign a Google Forms assessment in Schoology, my school's learning management system, and how to check a Google Forms assessment for the understanding of your learners. My target audience will consist of between 15 to 20 people between the ages of 22 and 65. The skill level of those involved will be varied. Some will be beginners, while others will have a strong Google Classroom background. Because of this, I will offer a step-by-step creation process for those who will need it, while also offering an advanced creation process for those whose skills are stronger. Upon completion of this module, my learners should have created a Google Forms assessment, uploaded it to Schoology, and learned how to check for their students' understanding. The home page of my module explains what the learners will be doing and gives the learner objectives. So it's right here. Okay. It also explains the first section. Create a Google Forms assessment will have a step-by-step instruction for those who need it, as well as an advanced section for those who have a stronger grasp of Google Forms. For this screencast file, we'll begin the course walking through the step-by-step creation of a Google Form assessment. So, I wanted the learners to know exactly what they would be doing in this section, so I gave them a checklist of activities that would be completed. They are then asked to click on the link to watch the video on how to create a Google Forms assessment. Once this is complete, they are brought to a review section. The flashcards offer a quick review of the steps required to create a Google Forms assessment. So there's the flashcards, and then they can click on it, and it gives them an answer to each thing. All right. In the first step, the learners were shown how to create a Google Forms assessment. All right. As we continue, in this step, they are shown how to add a text question. These are the easiest questions to add since you are simply trying or typing into the Google form. The learner is given a video tutorial followed by a quick formative check-in. So there's the video tutorial, and then they have a check-in. They can click on it, and it answers each question based off the video. The next step in the creation process is having the ability to add graphics and videos to the Google Forms assessment. This step requires a little more work on the creator's end because you have to have either the image or video selected prior to using them. A video tutorial is made available to the learner as well as check-in and exit slip. After this step is complete, the learner should now have the ability to add text, images, and videos to a Google Forms assessment. So there's the video they choose, and then there's the check-in questions. So you're asked to place a check in the box if it discusses a reason you would enter an image or video into the Google form. So they just go through and they got to see what they would think. And then here's the exit slip. The final step in the creation process is making an answer key for the Google Forms assessment. Without the answer key, the Google form would just be collecting data. An evaluation would not have occurred. In this section, a video tutorial is offered to walk the learner through the creation of an answer key. After watching the video, the learner must go through a quick formative check-in. I also end this step with a quick reminder to the learner to work when creating an answer key or to check their work. So there's the video. Here's the checking questions. And then here's the reminder. The next slide is where the most advanced learners would have started. I give them a brief overview of what is expected of them, a video tutorial, as well as a check-in checklist to make sure they were able to create everything required of them. At the conclusion of this step, I put in a disclaimer of sorts. It states that if you aren't able to do the 4 steps above, please ask for assistance. If it's something simple, I'll walk you through your issue. If not, I'll direct you to the correct section to help you. So here's kind of what's asked of them. There's the create, so they would click on that link. They'd work through it. Here are the 4 things they need to be able to do. And then if they're having any issues, please check in. So I'd either answer it or I'd direct them to one of the steps. Okay. But this is where the advanced learner would start. All right. No matter if you are advanced or someone who needs step-by-step walkthrough of the creation process, you will end up at the same conclusion for the creation process. Upon completion of the creation process, you are asked to share your Google Forms assessment with me and one of your classmates. When sharing out, I provide my learners with 4 questions to keep in mind while discussing and peer reviewing. I want them to have an honest conversation about what they have created and try to brainstorm ideas to improve their assessment in any way. So here is the share. It's just asking them to share with me and one other person. Remember, the creation of a Google Form assessment, it must be accessible on the following platforms. So this part's always going to be the same in the end conclusion portion of each section, because they need to remember they have to be available on a laptop, on a smartphone, or on a tablet. And then here are the questions to keep in mind when they're peer reviewing or working with me. Okay. All right. Now, the next part, once this is completed, they can move on to the how to assign a Google Forms assessment in Schoology. Being able to assign what you have created to your students is the next step in the process. This step tends to be tricky for everyone because if you're new to Google Forms, you don't necessarily know where to find the link for it. A video tutorial is again offered for my learners to walk through. After watching the tutorial, I provide them with an instructional image or interactive image. If you click on the interactive portions, it visually shows the learner what they are looking for when trying to obtain the Google Form link. This section concludes with a step-by-step check for understanding. All right, so it's going to start. All right, there's our video tutorial. All right, then once they're done with it, we're going to have an interactive image. So step 1, click on the send button in the upper right-hand corner, and it provides an image of what it looks like. All right, then step 2, click on the link button. You can shorten if you wish, but remember to copy the link so you can upload to Schoology. And then there's where they're looking for it. Okay. After that, it gives them a short little check-in. All right. So it's the different steps that they should do. All right. So there are the different questions and the answers. Okay. There we go. All right. The conclusion for each section have the same visual look and setup. The difference is the discussion question I provide them to guide their peer review. In this case, the questions are focused around a discussion on how to assign a Google Forms. It also has a compare and contrast question on assigning a Google Form as an assignment versus a link. All right, so if you look, it's the same basic setup. They're going to share again with me and one other learner, classmate. Again, they need to remember that it needs to be accessible on a laptop, smartphone, and tablet. And then here are the questions to guide them. All right, so they can work with me, or they can work with a peer and review through these. Okay, then we continue. The last section of this module involves how to check your Google Forms assessment for individual student responses, as well as check the class's performance summary. I begin this by showing my learners an interactive image. This shows them what they will be looking for on their Google Forms. After that, they are asked to watch a video tutorial. The tutorial walks them through how to check individual student performances, as well as how to check the class's performance summary. I conclude with a quick check for understanding before they move on to the peer review portion. So it's going to look like this. This time, the interactive image just opens it, so they're going to click on it to see kind of what they're looking for. So click responses after the student takes your Google Form assessment. The first available tab is the summary, so it'll show them what the summary looks like. Okay, and it gives you the average, the median, and the range score of the class. All right, and then click on it. And if we go to the second one, all right, that's our individual student assessment. So we click on it, and as you can see, if it was above, it would see their score, but it also shows you when they get something right, when they get something wrong, and you can kind of give a look through that. All right. After they see that, they're going to be able to watch an interactive video and do a quick little formative. So it'll ask them a question, give them the answer, question, answer, question, answer. There we go. All right. The conclusion for this section, again, has the same visual look as and setup as the previous peer review sections. The questions provided for this section revolve around knowledge and ability to check the class summary and individual responses on their Google Forms assessment. So again, it looks the same in terms of setup. They're going to share with me and one other's classmate. Same thing. We got the tablet, the computer, and the smartphone, because they need to remember that it's got to be accessible on that. And then it has 3 questions to guide them. Okay. With this one, it is if it's just asking about assessment. Okay. All right. My learners now have completed the 3 learning objectives asked of them to create in Google Forms assessment they can use with their students. To conclude the PD, I'm asking my learners to complete a what, so what, now what activity in Padlet. This way, everyone will be able to see their Google Forms, the Google Forms they created. All right, so it kind of explains what they're doing. All right, and then it gives them a link to go to the Padlet. So I'm going to click on that one so you can see what the Padlet's going to look like. All right. It also allows for group discussion. The what question I chose was, what do you learn? This allows each person to discuss what they learned or thought helpful, as well as allow each person to comment on each other's posts. The so what question I chose was, after going through the creation process, is making Google Forms assessment something you can see yourself doing for your classroom? Why or why not? This allows us to have a conversation on the creation process and if it is something they would like to continue with their students. They also should be able to discuss the pros and cons of Google Forms assessment. Finally, the now what question I chose was, what do you need to do to address any challenges that arose during this PD? This allows us to have a discussion on any challenges they see arising in the creation process or in the future. The reason I chose this question is now that everyone has gone through the PD, they have created something. They will be able to offer a creator's opinion and insight now. It's not just me talking about how I would address a challenge. So they'd go through with this one. You click on it, and you're going to be able to post your Google Forms assessment so then everyone could see it in that column. Here, answer what did you learn from the PD, and then you can respond to each person's thing. Here's the next portion where, again, they can click on it, respond, and people can collaborate. And then the last one, the challenges that arose, same kind of thing. If you click on the plus, you can add a post. People can communicate back and forth. There you go.